Good evening, everyone. It's 5 p.m. on the 24th of March 2026. I'm Councillor Chris Gibbs, the Shire President for the Shire of York, and I'm declaring this ordinary council meeting open at 5 p.m. I'd like to advise that the Yorkshire Council acknowledges the Ballardong people of the Noongar Nation, who are the traditional owners of the country where this meeting is being held, and recognise their continuing connection to land, water, sky and culture. We pay our respects to all these people and their elders, past, present and emerging. In accordance with Regulations 14I and 14J of the Local Government Administration Regulations 1996, notice is given that this meeting is being video and audio recorded to facilitate community participation and for minute-taking purposes. By being present at a meeting, members of the public consent to the possibility that their image and voice may be recorded. Audio recordings are published on the Shire's website following the meeting and may be released upon request to third parties. Members of the public are reminded that in accordance with Section 6.16 of the Shire of York Local Government Council Meetings Local Law 2016, nobody shall use any visual or vocal recording device or instrument to record the proceedings of council without the written permission of the presiding member. I wish to draw attention to the disclaimer notice contained within the agenda document and advise members of the public that any decisions made at the meeting today can be revoked in accordance with Regulation 10 of the Local Government Administration Regulations 1996. Therefore, members of the public should not rely on any decisions until formal notification in writing from the Shire has been received. Any plans or documents in agendas and minutes may be subject to copyright. The express permission of the copyright owner must be obtained before copying any copyright material. There's no change to standing orders. There's no announcement of visitors. Councillors, are there any declarations of proximity interest for tonight's items? There are none. Are there any declarations of financial interests? There are none. And are there any disclosures of impartiality interest? And there are none. Thank you. Attendance, there's myself, Councillor Chris Gibbs, Shire President. There's Councillor Denise Smythe, the Deputy Shire President. We have Councillor Elaine Ashford, Councillor Monique Hutchinson, Councillor Kevin Pike, Councillor Kevin Trent and Councillor Melissa Welsh. For the staff, we have Alina Bean, the Temporary Chief Executive Officer, Annika Burleson, Acting Executive Manager, Corporate and Community Services. Rebecca Palumbo is the Acting Executive Manager for Infrastructure and Development Services. And Emma Hannington is our Council Support Officer. We have apologies from no one. And we have no leaves of absence previously approved. The number of people in the gallery at the commencement of the meeting is 13. Thank you for coming. So we go to questions from previous meetings. There's a response to a previous public question taken on notice, and it was from Kate Morris. Nearly 17 weeks ago, I contacted the Shire office regarding my ongoing concern regarding an illegal caravan park that has been set up in the Shire of York, 15 kilometres west of York. Unfortunately, I have yet to receive any response or acknowledgement of my email. Could you please clarify why my email, along with others sent over the past year, seems to have gone unaddressed? And what steps are being taken to investigate and address the illegal caravan park? And the response is, we apologise for the delay in replying to your email. Contact has been made with the owners of the lot in question and our inquiries into the activity are ongoing. The matter is being addressed through our normal compliance process and you will be updated once a determination is made. Response to unasked questions from the previous meeting is nil, which brings us to public question time. So I just need to roll back a little bit there, Emma, because I believe I have to read this all out for the recording, if that's okay. So most of you have probably heard this before, but it is for the recording, so I'm going to read the preamble for public question time, okay? Public question time is conducted in accordance with the Local Government Act 1995 and regulations. In addition to this, the Shire's Local Government Council Meetings Local Law 2016 states, under the procedures for members of the public, question time for the public, 1, a member of the public who wishes to ask a question during question time must identify themselves and register with a council officer immediately prior to the meeting. 2, a question may be taken on notice by council for later response. 3, when a question is taken on notice, the CEO is to ensure that A, a response is given to the member of the public in writing, and B, a summary of the response is included in the agenda of the next meeting of council. 4, where a question relating to a matter in which a relevant person has an interest is directed to the relevant person is to A, declare that he or she has an interest in the matter, and B, allow another person to respond to the question. 5, each member of the public with a question is entitled to ask up to 2 questions before other members of the public will be invited to ask their questions. 6, where a member of the public provides written questions, then the presiding member may elect for the questions to be responded to as normal business correspondence. 7, the presiding member may decide that a public question shall not be responded to where A, the same or similar question was asked at a previous meeting, a response was provided, and the member of the public is directed to the minutes of the meeting at which the response was provided. B, the member of the public uses public question time to make a statement, providing that the presiding member has taken all reasonable steps to assist the member of the public to phrase the statement as a question. Or C, the member of the public asks a question that is offensive or defamatory in nature, provided that the presiding member has taken all reasonable steps to assist the member of the public to phrase the question in a manner that is not offensive or defamatory. 8, a member of the public shall have 2 minutes to submit a question. 9, the council by resolution may agree to extend public question time. 10, where any questions remain unasked at the end of public question time, they may be submitted to the CEO, who will reply in writing and include the questions and answers in the agenda for the next ordinary council meeting. And 11, where an answer to a question is given at a meeting, a summary of the question and answer is to be included in the minutes. Now, we did have some information out there as well, and we mentioned it at the agenda briefing last week, that because we have an officer in training this evening, that questions will be taken most likely on notice this evening to help with the training process. Okay? So, we have some written questions, and the first one is from Karen Thomas. Karen, do you want me to read the question out, or would you like to ask it? Thanks. If you could make sure the microphone is on and just state your name, please. I just need to open public question time at 5:07 p.m.
Thank you. Karen Thomas. My question is, the work that has been carried out recently along McCartney Street has left one side of the complete length of the street with appalling and serious damage that is a real danger to drivers and their vehicles. Are the contractors or the responsible body going to return to rectify this damage, or will it be left to the Shire and therefore the ratepayers to fix and foot the bill?
Okay, and there's a response provided by the Acting Executive Manager, Infrastructure and Development Services. Would you like me to read that? The project is not yet completed. The contractor's obligation is to return our asset to a suitable condition. This is Water Corporation work, and we have well-established arrangements with them about reinstatement. For example, when they do repairs or connections that require the road to be disturbed. This project will require the same outcome. So that's the last of the written questions. So we now move to public question time. Do I have anyone who has questions, firstly, on the actual agenda this evening? Items from tonight's agenda? Okay, do I have anyone who has questions that are outside of tonight's agenda? Would you like to come up to the podium, state your name and ask a question, please?
My name's Darlene Barrett, and I would like to know if the Shire of York has a governance and compliance officer.
Thank you for your question, and I will pass that across to the temporary CEO, Alina Behan.
And thank you. We will write a response to you on that one.
Okay, and would I be able to know who it is, please?
That's a good question. I'll write a response to that one as well.
Okay.
We should be able to provide that data.
Right, thank you.
Thanks for your question. Are there any other questions? There are no further questions. Do we have anyone? Okay. All right, well, that being the case, I will close public question time at 5:10 p.m. Thank you very much for your participation. Applications for leave of absence, there are none. Presentations, there are none. Petitions, presentations and deputations, there are none tonight. Delegates' reports, there's a report there from Deputy President Councillor Denise Smythe and the meetings and events that she attended during February. Number 7 is the confirmation of the minutes of previous meetings. So there's a recommendation there. Are there any questions on the confirmation of minutes, or there are? Do I have a mover? Councillor Smythe.
Councillor Smythe's happy to move it.
Councillor Smythe is moving and
Councillor Trent is seconding.
Councillor Trent is seconding. Is anyone against this item or recommendation? There are none. Let's take a vote, please. And that's carried 7. Thank you, Council. There are no announcements. Oh, the only announcements I've got is those are the meetings that I've attended throughout February and a little bit of March. We're on to the officers' reports. So, item SY012-03/26 is operational policy 014, rural and urban street addressing. It's to inform Council that the leadership team has adopted operational policy 014, and there's a recommendation there. Let's have a quick look. Councillors, are there any points of clarification or questions on this item? There are none. Do I have a mover?
Councillor Trent moves.
Councillor Trent will move. Councillor Welsh.
Councillor Welsh second.
Would anyone like to speak against the item? No one. Let's take a vote, please. And that's carried 7-0. Moving right along. Item SY013-03/26 is Containers for Change Refund Point, the future operation. So the purpose of this report was to seek some council direction regarding the future operation of Containers for Change, which is currently operated by the Shire of York under agreement with WARL, WA Return, Recycle, Renew Proprietary Limited. Let's have a look at the recommendation. That's what we're being asked to vote on. Council, are there any points of clarification or questions? Yes, Councillor Hutchinson.
Thank you, President Gibbs. If the WA Return Cycle Renew Company does find a new operator who agrees to establish an alternative location, are there any other options available as to location other than the York tip?
Thanks very much. I'll hand that across to the administration for a response.
Thank you. And for clarity for the gallery, these were questions that were asked last week, and written responses have already been provided, but with the idea that you would like to probably hear the answers to those questions, they're just being read out tonight, so I'll pass that over to our acting EMIDS for a response.
Thank you. Through the Chair. The Shire has not identified any other suitable Shire-owned or managed land for the establishment of Containers for Change facility. The York Transfer Station has only been identified as a potential location if the Shire were to continue operating the facility long term, and is not being proposed as a site for a new operator as part of the expression of interest process. If WARL identifies a community group or private operator through the expression of interest process, the operator would be required to propose an alternative location for the facility as part of their submission. This may include land already owned or leased by the operator, such as land held by a community organisation or a commercial premises. Any proposed location would be subject to the relevant planning, building and operational approvals required to establish and operate a Containers for Change refund point.
Thanks for that response. Are there further questions? Yes, Councillor Hutchinson.
Is there a possibility for this depot to return to the Shire hands or community groups' hands at a later date if WARL do find a new operator? And will a contract inclusive of an agreed time frame of operation be included?
Thanks very much, and I will hand that off to the administration for a response.
And thank you through the Chair. Back to our acting EMID.
Thank you. Through the Chair. The intention is for the operation of the facility to transition to a new operator. The new operator would enter into a refund point agreement directly with the WA Return, Recycle, Renew Limited, and the Shire would not be party to that contract. Any operational arrangements, including the term of operation, would be managed between WARL and the new operator. If at a later date that service contract is not renewed, then it is likely that WARL would release a new expression of interest for the service, and either the Shire or another community group or operator could consider their position at that time.
Okay. Councillor Hutchinson, did you have anything further? In that case, Councillor Trent, you have a question.
Yes, Mr President. Obviously, this is going to take time to transition from the council-owned and run facility through to an unknown at this stage, outside organisation. Will the facility continue to operate where it is until the new operator has got their own establishment set up? And in other words, will the service continue?
Thank you for your question, and I will hand that across to the temporary CEO.
Thank you through the chair. So we will continue to operate in accordance with the contract. That will be out of the depot site unless any other pressures force that out, which might be as part of the LIA, but we would expect that any change would have concluded by then.
Councillors, are there any further questions? I've got one, if that's all right. I just wanted to clarify that these recommendations here and the steps that are being taken therein would still result in the next step coming back to council regardless once there's some idea of direction.
And yes, through the chair, absolutely. So any changes in service levels are a council decision. So it would be up to you and the team here to make that decision.
Thanks very much. If there are no further questions, do I have a mover for the item? Councillor Trent?
Moves.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for the item? Councillor Ashford?
Councillor Ashford, second.
Okay. Is there anyone who would like to speak against? There are none. Let's take a vote on those steps. And that's carried 7. Thank you. And we'll move on to our next item. SY014-03/26 is the York Bicentenary Planning. So the purpose of the report is to seek council approval to commence planning for Bicentenary in 2031 and the establishment of a reserve account. Let's have a look at the recommendation. Councillors, are there any points of clarification or questions on this item? There are none. Do I have a mover? Councillor Smythe?
Councillor Smythe moves the recommendation.
Do I have a seconder?
Councillor Trent seconds.
Councillor Trent seconds. Would anyone like to speak against the recommendation? No one. So let's put it to the vote. And that's carried 7. Thank you. The next item is SY015-03/26, which is the Tourism Funding Acquittal for West Cycle Incorporated, which is the Canola Classic 2025. So this is the acquittal for the funding. Let's have a look at the recommendation. So council, we're being asked to accept the acquittal report. Are there any points of clarification or questions? The report's obviously been provided in the agenda. Do I have a mover? Councillor Welsh.
Councillor Welsh moves.
Thank you, Councillor Welsh. Do I have a seconder?
Councillor Trent seconds.
Thank you, Councillor Trent. Do I have anyone to speak against the item? There's no one. Let's take a vote on accepting that acquittal, and that's carried 7. Thank you. Moving right along. Okay, so the next item is SY016-03/26, which is the review of Audit Risk and Improvement Committee payments for independent members. It presents a review of the payments made to independent members of the Audit Risk and Improvement Committee to reflect legislative changes. Let's have a look at the recommendation. Councillors, are there any questions or points of clarification on this? Okay, do I have a mover? Councillor Smythe.
Councillor Smythe moves the recommendation.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Ashford.
Councillor Ashford, seconds.
Would anyone like to speak against the recommendation? Let's take a vote. And that's carried 7. Thank you. Item SY017-03/26 is a policy review of Policy E14 Communications Protocol. It's a review of that policy for council consideration. We'll go to the recommendation and have a look, and that's what it is there. A copy of the changes has been provided. Are there any points of clarification or questions on this one, council? There are none. Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Trent.
Councillor Trent moves.
May I have a seconder? Councillor Welsh.
Councillor Welsh seconds.
Would anyone like to speak against the item? No, let's take a vote. And that's carried 7. Thank you, council. There's another policy review. So SY018-03/26 is a policy review for E1, Code of Conduct for council members. Sorry, Emma, I can't read the whole item with that little box there. Thank you. Committee members and candidates, and E11, Council Code of Conduct, Division 3, Complaints Handling. So it presents a policy review of both of those. Let's have a look at the recommendation. Councillors, you've been provided the changes. Are there any points of clarification or questions? There are none. May I have a mover for this item? Councillor Trent. Councillor Trent, thank you. Do I have a seconder for the item? Councillor Welsh. Thank you, Councillor Trent. Thanks. Turn your mic off there. Okay. Is anyone speaking against this item? Okay, let's take a vote. And that's carried 7. Thank you. The next item is SY019-03/26, and that's sector feedback on proposed electoral reforms. It presents options to council to consider its position on proposed electoral reforms to inform Walga's sector-wide feedback position. So we were asked, local councils were asked to provide a position on some ideas that might be surfacing for local government elections in the future. Let's have a look at the recommendation. And we've got our report on that as well. So are there any points of clarification or questions on this one? There are none. May I have a mover, please?
Move Councillor Trent.
Councillor Trent is moving. Is anyone seconding? Councillor Ashford.
Councillor Ashford seconds.
Thanks very much. Is anyone speaking against the recommendation? No. Let's take a vote. That's carried 7. The feedback will be forwarded. Thank you, council. SY020-03/26 is the minutes and recommendations of the Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee meeting, which was held on the 10th of March 2026. So the minutes come to council for reporting purposes. Let's have a look at the recommendation. Okay, there's a fair bit there and what's been looked at the agenda briefing, and you have the appropriate report. Are there any points of clarification or questions? Yes, Councillor Hutchinson.
Thank you, President Gibbs. In the Appendix A2 forecast statement of comprehensive income of 24 to 39, it appears we're agreeing to a forecast projecting an increase in debt over the next 13 years. Am I understanding this correctly?
Thank you very much for your question, and I will pass that across to the administration for a response.
Thank you through the Chair. I'll pass that on to our acting EMCCS.
Thank you through the Chair. So Appendix A2 forecast statement of comprehensive income by nature and type is operating revenue and expenditure. The trend shows a deficit in the outgoing years due to the impact of depreciation, which is a non-cash item. So if we then look at Appendix A5, which is the forecast statement of cash flow, under the reconciliation of net cash provided by operating activities to net result section, the net result links back to A2, Appendix A2. The next 2 lines show depreciation non-cash and non-operating grants and contributions being taken out of that equation. leaving the net cash from operating activities, and that shows a surplus in the outgoing years.
Thank you for that response. Are there further questions? Yes, Councillor Hutchinson, you have another.
In regards to the Appendix A5 forecast statement of the cash flow 2439, why is the finance cost so erratic from as little as $0 to $164,873 that fluctuates over the years?
Thank you for your question, and I will hand that across to the administration for a response.
And thank you through the chair. Back to acting EMCCS.
Thank you, through the chair. So the finance cost reflected in Appendix A5 relates to the interest on loan borrowings. Generally, with our borrowings, we pay off a fixed amount for each repayment. So over time, the value of the principal paid increases and the interest decreases. In year 2027 to 28, it spikes at $164,873, as that's when it's proposed that the first payments will be made on the projected borrowings of $2.2 million, drawn down in the later part of 2026-27. As A5 has finance costs of zero in 2037 to 38, that's showing that the intention is that the borrowings of the $2.2 million will be paid in full and no additional borrowings taken out. A similar trend is reflected in Appendix A3 with the planned long-term borrowings for the 24-39 period. You're welcome.
Thank you for that response. Are there further questions on this item? There are none. May I have a mover for this item?
Councillor Trent moves.
Councillor Trent, thank you. And may I have a seconder for the item? Councillor Smythe.
Councillor Smythe seconds.
Thank you. Is anyone speaking against this item? Let's take a vote. It's carried 7. Thank you. Okay, the next item is the financial report for February 2026, which is item SY021-03/26. Let's have a look at the recommendation. Councillors, are there questions on this one? Councillor Smythe.
I have a few questions, not a big heap, but on page 316, the outstanding debtors, the current year heading is incorrect because it says the 30th of the 11th, 25. I'm happy to read what the response is if you want, because you've given them to me.
I think we'll...
Yep.
Thank you for your question. Let's hand it off to the administration for a response.
And thank you through the chair. We have already provided the response, but I think it is important for most of these to be heard. Would you mind asking all your questions just for, because there's quite a few, and then we can just provide the answer to all.
Okay, Councillor Smythe.
Okay, I'm happy to do that. That's my first question. My second question was, in the 90 days and over, the BAS refund has been in December, January and February. Is this correct? And also the long service leave outstanding has been in January and February. My next question is page 318, outstanding rates and services. Can you please explain what is meant by rates balance until the 12th to the 3rd, 26 due to being unable to obtain the required system reports after the server migration? That's it.
Those are your questions. Thanks, Councillor Smythe. Let's hand across to the administration for...
And thank you through the chair. I'll pass that on to our acting EMCCS. Did you have a copy of those?
Thank you, through the chair. So I can confirm on page 316 with the outstanding sundry debtors, that is a typo and should read the 28th of February 2026. For the 90 days and over with the BAS refund, that is correct. There were delays reporting the BAS when trying to input the backlog of creditors that we had. We still need to investigate the July BAS to ensure everything has been reported correctly. The current invoice has been paid. And for the long service leave, this has been outstanding since 16th of July 25. This was followed up with the appropriate council 2 weeks ago now. And we were advised that payment authorisation was awaiting their CEO sign-off. Payment was received on the 16th of March. The page 318, outstanding rates and services. So usually financial reconciliations are run to the end of each month, and the required age trial balance reports that we run cannot be run retrospectively. The migration of our SynergySoft database, which is our finance system, to a new server created errors with our system reporting, so we're unable to generate that balance report at the end of the month. And so the errors were fixed in the system, and we were able to run the reports as at the 12th of March, and therefore we reconciled to that date for the purpose of this report.
Thanks for that response. Are there further questions on this item? Okay, may I have a mover? Councillor Welsh.
Councillor Welsh moves.
A seconder, please. Councillor Smythe.
Councillor Smythe seconds.
Is anyone speaking against the item? No? Let's take a vote. And that's carried 7. Thank you, Council. All right, next item. That's investments for February 2026. So item SY022-03/26, it represents the balance and distribution of investments held by the Shire of York to Council. Let's have a look at the recommendation. The report has been supplied in Appendix 1. Councillors, are there questions or points of clarification on this item? Councillor Welsh.
Thanks, Chris, but I think with the change in the agenda, the numbers are out. I think my questions that I had actually related to the previous item.
I see. So you have no questions based on the current version. Okay. Thanks, Councillor Welsh. And if there's no further questions, I'll ask for a mover.
Councillor Trent moves.
Thank you, Councillor Trent. I'll have a seconder, please. Councillor Ashford.
Councillor Ashford seconds.
Is anyone speaking against the item? Let's take a vote. And that's carried 7. Thank you, Council. Okay. There are no motions of which previous notice has been given. So we move to questions from council members without notice. Are there any questions from council? Yes, Councillor Hutchinson.
Thank you, President Gibbs. In regards to the question that we had taken on notice, which had pointed out that there was a delay with 17 weeks to an email, does admin have a policy in regards to email reply? And also, what can council offer community to understand the process of email answering?
Okay, well, the first part of the question is to the administration, so I'll hand that over to the temporary CEO for a response.
Thank you, through the chair. Can I just clarify too, Councillor Hutchinson, do you mean, for the second part of the question, did you mean what can council offer, or do you mean the Shire?
Well, so that we can understand what that process is. What would the Shire like council, if councillors were asked questions as to what emails aren't being answered or we haven't had an email answered, what can we offer as a reply?
Okay, so that is an administration question then. I'll hand that to the CEO.
Thank you, through the chair. So we don't have a policy on that states a number of days that you might receive a response in, for example. So we do have a comms policy for council specifically that does say you'll receive a response, an acknowledgement within 2 days, and you'll receive a response within 10. But because we have a lot of staff members who are a discrete area of responsibility, we can't always promise a particular day, because you can imagine if they were sick or away on leave, we may not be able to get that considered response to you within a time. So we have a customer service charter which sets out as soon as reasonably practical as the way that we do that. And as we discussed last week, we receive an extraordinary amount of emails. And just speaking from what my inbox looks like, 90 to 100 a day. Usually in meetings all day, tackle it towards the end of the day, as you'll know of the responses you've received. I know when I was sitting in the EMCCS chair, same thing again. There's a very high volume of traffic, so we certainly attempt to get to everything. There are ones that will slip through the cracks, certainly when officers are leaving or changing, we've had a lot of change in admin, so that's largely why you may not receive a response. If you don't receive a response, please just contact administration and ask, and then we can follow that up.
Thanks for the response. Any further questions from council? Okay. There's no business of an urgent nature introduced by a decision of the meeting, and there's no reason to close the meeting to the public because there are no confidential items this evening. Therefore, at 5:35 p.m. on the 24th of March 2026, I will close this OCM and thank you for your attendance, and we will see you next month. Thank you, Council. Thanks, Administration.